Hey everybody, welcome back to the Good Old Boys. I think we're on episode, number 7 now?
Yeah, I think so.
And as always, I'm Mark.
Bog beef.
Today we're even less coherent than usual. We're just kind of winging it on a couple subjects that we wanted to talk about. And I think the juiciest one is the Dirtbag Left Party with Rachel Rabbit White.
Yeah. I was going to say, this one's, we just figured we'd fire up the mics and throw some people under the bus real quick. We got a real big episode coming up with a very special guest. They're a bit under the weather. I know people waiting on some more good old boys, so we figured we'd just fire it up, go a little wild
Shoot
here.
from the hip.
Sure. So, yeah, we had this wild article come out like a week ago. Sex and drugs and you wish you were there, buddy. You wish you got all that.
Yeah, I'd never heard of this woman before, so I guess she must not be really a Twitter celebrity like the rest of the Dirtbag Left.
Yeah. It sounds like she's a dancer and some kind of pot dealer or some shit like this. Once you sort of like sit down, read some Marx, some Proudhon or something, get ready to you want to dig your teeth into the American socialist movement. You start meeting you start meeting some characters. You gotta check out the big experts. First off, you need to go check out the article. It's at The Cut. It's called Rachel Rabbit White Poetry Book Launch Party. So
yeah, and it's kind of a Caligula aesthetic.
Yeah, Caligula, a little flabby, a little freshman 15, a little pushing 40. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, you had a critique of this, particularly about how in the article they talk about snorting cocaine and also taking ketamine, but that's neither here nor there. You had a critique about the cocaine, right?
Yeah. I mean, I spent a lot of time in Miami. I was in a fraternity. I did a lot of partying, and there's a lot of talk like, oh, well, we all just sort of recreationally do some cocaine here and there. That, okay, you can sort of get away with that when you're 20, 21, 22, but I know what coming down off coke feels like, and I know what being 36, 37 feels like. I'm not yet, but wheels start falling off. You can't just recreationally use these kind of super intense drugs when you're pushing 40 without people's lives falling apart, without weird shit going down. You get these. Buddy comes over. He's got a weird story about his sister needs money for an operation or whatever, and then you're like, oh, okay, I can't talk to that guy again. He's hooked.
I have two things to say about that. The first is you hear stories about famous people, like legit famous people, actors, musicians, who snort coke into their 50s, right? And of course, yeah, it does fuck you up. But and then that leads to my second point, which is, so let's say you were on the Chapo Trap House podcast. Can you imagine a scenario where you had to get up at 7 a.m.?
No.
So I mean, what's the?
So you're saying this is a rock star lifestyle, the podcast world?
Well, Rockstar makes it sound too cool.
I mean, I don't know if that's what you're saying. I think that's what this article is saying. And sort of the responses on Twitter, you got this thing where it's like, oh, you just wish you were there. You wish you got this much sex and drugs. And it's like, no, this is, me and you, we've seen some photos passed around of what parties look like at Sarah Lawrence College. Yes.
Yeah.
They're not the kind of thing where it's like, oh shit, oh man, if I could get into that door, it's like, these people are kind of
it's not necessarily our party kind of party.
Yeah, you might pass on that. I've seen, where I've seen similar stuff like this. I played a ton of poker when I was younger, and you'd have these poker parties, and it's guys who they sort of they got some change on them, and they sort of got it late. They got it in their 30s, their 40s, or whatever, and they're sort of experiencing life 10, 20 years too late, and it's that
it's like a parody of a bohemian lifestyle rather than
yeah. There's the jouissance is not there. It's like the you've seen the Golden Girls. Like the punchline to every joke in the Golden Girls is basically like it's not really the same anymore. This typically when you start having kids, and the kids, they enjoy things, and you sort of, that's the only way you really get the level of enjoyment back that you have when you're 18, 19 is sort of vicariously through them.
What I thought about when I saw the article was that, like you said, rock star lifestyle doesn't. I don't think that's accurate. I think it's like a bohemian. It seems to be at least aping bohemian lifestyle. I don't.
People who stay up late, hang out at art galleries, smoke cigarettes, talk about.
Yeah, for the record, I don't know anything about these people whatsoever, so I'm just purely just shooting from the hip completely here. I have no problem believing that they're in the K-hole and they're snorting coke frequently because, like I said, the wheels fall. You said what you said before about the wheels falling off when you're in your 30s and you live this lifestyle. That's because when you're in your 30s, you have responsibilities. If you subtract those responsibilities from a person, then it's not a problem. You can just do whatever.
Right, and that's fine. That's the tale as old as time. This is just what we've seen. This is what rich kids do. But let's. So why is this relevant to us? I guess I'd say a couple things here. First off, was these people are huge dicks. All of our friends. Second off, there's a claim of authority on the subject of things like socialism, which.
You're wrong about that. There's no claim of authority. It's the opposite of that. It's acting as if you have some sort of authority, but you would go out of your way to claim that you're just, I'm just a funny podcast Twitter person. I'm not, you know that drill.
Okay. Well, when Splinter went down, some of the people in the article had some choice words, but people said that they. And by the way, socialism, that's a ridiculous topic in America today. Like, how close are we to some socialist revolution? I don't know. But these are players in politics.
Yeah, these are the people who, some of the foremost...
We're just NPCs. We just sort of receive opinions from on high. These big names, right?
There were probably a lot of people at that party who have very strong opinions about Marxism.
Sure.
To me, there's I think that there's an inherent problem with the idea that these the same people who are doing coketamine are going to lead the vanguard, or I mean, like what? I don't even understand anymore what
socialism would do. Like, because typically when you think of socialism, you're thinking of some money's going to flow down from big piles into a lot of smaller piles. Huh?
Well, that's a great point right there. When you think of socialism,
when you live like this, like you're thinking, what kind of socialist world do you like? What are you going to get, a chauffeur or something? Like what are you missing out on right now?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. When you think of socialism, what do you think of? I think of workers in the factory who seize the means of production. That's what goes on in my brain, like the image I have of it from both propaganda and reading.
Boys on the docks.
Right, that's what I see. That's not what socialism means anymore, especially in America. I think that it basically means, like you said, now a strategy for how you're going to divvy up dole money.
Right, so you see these people as...
That's perfectly fine. Like, if we're talking about the first thing, we're talking about fucking Jimmy Hoffa and the Teamsters... Then these people having any say, having any claim to, or being viewed as someone advocating for socialism would be like a hilarious joke. But if it's the second part, which is we're going to decide, we're going to be bureaucrats deciding who gets what slice of tax money, then it actually makes a lot of sense.
This is your nomenclatura.
Yeah, and
this is that's my friend. I don't know if we're gonna seize that capital. They I know they really worked hard for it.
Well, to be fair, I don't think most of those people even really believe that you would get that far.
No. I think here's what I think. I think we in these older millennials grew up watching. The Daily Show had a monstrous effect on politics, and its sort of symbiotic relationship with the Bush administration just sort of completely discredited conservatism. And so the obvious angle was socialism, and it's not like I'm into market socialism, I'm into this or that. It's just varying degrees of sincerity. So if you just say, well, I'm to the left of Stalin, that just means you're more down for the movement. It's just a 0 to 100 slider of how much you're really into it. This is why we've had some of our friends who sort of walk around and claim themselves to be moderates. They're the most like they're the only people that's really going to tell you the truth right now. Because why would you say that? You should be claiming that you're a Bolshevik right now. That's the only way to get any authority, by claiming what you are.
We can save ourselves.
Sorry. Hang on, and then to finish it up, basically, this is the way to get a pass if you're loaded, is to say that I'm a communist.
Okay, that's a fair point, because a lot of these internet famous dirtbag left, and to say socialist or Marxist is a bad idea, because a lot of times, a lot of these people wouldn't even make that claim themselves. It's always just left.
No, positive claims are really hard to find, to be honest.
About anything.
Because everyone is a critiquer, and then once you get a hold of somebody and say, well, what's your positive vision for where things should go? You get, hey, I just want people to stop dying from the police, man. Is that too much to ask? Why don't we just stop being racist? Do I need to ask for more than that? What's wrong with you? Let's just stop the bad things.
What you said before about being to the left of Stalin, I think there's another dimension to that too, which is you can almost define something being to the left as this kind of radical sense of empathy for perceived victims versus perceived oppressors. Which is, I know that's you could say, well, this is a core part of Marxism, right? The inherent and oppressive nature of, but it's kind of been completely sliced away from that and become its own thing, where someone being downtrodden and oppressed is a virtue in itself, completely separate from political economy, class antagonism, whatever. It's just being a lowly person is good. So I'm going to support the lowliest person I could find.
So so this is where you get this. I'm a prostitute. I'm a drug addict. All this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and among other things,
mentally ill. They're all everyone's mental. By the way, well, keep going. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say I have a little bit about this. So do you remember the big DSA convention?
Yes.
And I don't even think we need to transition. This is all the same shit. Do you remember how powerful the big money? So they have these little coalitions, the little miniature. What do they call them?
Caucuses.
Yeah, little caucuses. And the one that became really potent almost immediately was the Disability Caucus. Why is that? Here's why that is. Because this is the free square. If you listen to their theology, every person in the world qualifies as mentally ill. If you get anxiety issues or qualifies as disabled, but you can't just be like this. Well, I'm just a rich white guy. I'm here. By which you said you need a claim in its slave morality. If you're not black or Native American or something like this, then that's where you go. That's what happens there. And just sort of, and you're thinking, well, what about the people with Parkinson's disease or stage 4 Lou Gehrig's? Well, this is like a very small amount of people, modern Western medicine state, so they're not really there.
Well, and we talked about this the other day, and those people, at least traditionally, they didn't like being called disabled. In fact, we would make up fake euphemisms to say like, differently abled or whatever, so that they could have dignity and pretend that they're not disabled and not lesser than. Whereas now you go the exact opposite tack. You almost parade around how pathetic you are and how difficult life is for you because your brain is broken or whatever.
Yeah. And this is really important if you're loaded. If you're looking to go to the right school district, if you're looking to get a couple extra minutes on your SAT test, and if you're looking to have a media career.
It's funny because conservative commentators and or I guess really if we're still talking about the dirtbag left, we should look at conservative Twitter people who are like who kind of fill that role for the right, and they're the exact opposite. They're full of braggadocio and worshiping strength, even in a way that you can tell it's kind of a put on, but it's aspirational, right?
Sure.
You could almost say that their position in the power structure is an inversion of the way they act in both cases.
yeah, that's pretty funny.
The dirtbag left person can get you fired from your job. Like, they can get, like, Chris Hayes listens to Chapo Trap House.
Sure.
If you watch how these people interact, they pretend that they're nobody, they got all these problems, etc. Whereas, like with Bronze Age pervert is probably is one that comes to mind. Like, look at his persona.
Yeah.
He can't get you fired from your job. Right.
Yeah, it's. I mean, and even the little followers and stuff. You said something that tweaked my interest there. You said that it's aspirational. So you're sort of a. Let's take a stereotypical version of each person. It's a stereotypical frog Twitter guy. It's probably a guy, 19, 20, doesn't get a lot of ass. He's sort of. He doesn't have a ton of power in the world. What are his job prospects? Probably not super great. And yet he's aspiring to be this mega man. It's Alexander the Great, right?
Right.
Okay, so if we flip that around, does this mean that the rank and file, whatever, the Tumblr person, they aspire to be more broken?
Yes, and well.
Yeah, hold on. We gotta let that marinate a second. Okay, continue.
Yes, because it's easier, and it's much easier to wallow than it is to try to do. I don't want to sound like a motivational speaker here because I'm not qualified, but there's a seductive pull to just giving up and I'm saying your shit and you're not going to amount to anything and etc.
Ta-Nehisi Coates.
You always say that. Like, you mean like Afro-pessimism?
Yeah.
Right, but that's okay. Fair enough. That's kind of abstracted though. This is on a very personal level. It's kind of the millennial ironic detachment taken to its final conclusion, which is that you're not going to be too much of a try hard at life. You're just gonna accept that you're a piece of shit, and
which is whenever you're my impulse with people that are playing this try hard game is that they're just seething in resentment.
Well, yeah, and I don't know. You can take everything I just said and think, well, these people, I guess, average Tumblr. We're saying Tumblr, Twitter. We're not talking about like the people with podcasts and stuff, but just like the person who's getting 5 likes on their tweet when they tweet. Like they're probably financially more. They're definitely more successful than like me, probably.
Yeah. I mean, look at the Patreons for different podcasts. Progressive stuff kicks ass.
Well, I'm just saying, like, not even those people. Just if you're into that stuff, you went to grad school. You probably got a decent job.
Yeah, little bureaucrat type deal.
Yeah, or whatever. And so when you say you aspire to be pathetic, that's really more about how you carry yourself in your everyday life than an objective measurement of where you are.
So this is going to be a fucked up example, but there's a sexuality version of this. So you know any lesbians?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, into big trucks and stuff like that.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. I see what you're getting at.
Yeah. So in the progressive world, you have a different version. You have a version where they're lesbians, but
they're prison lesbians.
There's never a thing where it's like I love women. I just love women. Love taking them out on Saturday night. Take them out black powder rifle shooting, whatever. Listen to some folk music. You don't get that. It's only posited in how much that they loathe men. Do you understand? You've seen this?
Yeah. Oh, of course. If you've been online, you've seen this.
Yeah, and it's your world. It's not. Why not enjoy it? But I mean, could you? I mean, there's the straight version would be absurd because you'd be like, could you imagine? Like, men are so fucking disgusting. Shave that beard. You look like a. I guess I'm gonna be fucking these hoes instead. It's God, I hate my life. These men are just repulsive.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Self-loathing and is such a key component to.
It's a free world.
It's such a key component to everything that happens. I don't even know how to navigate it anymore.
Are they afraid to say, well, this is what I want?
Yes, everybody's afraid of doing that. Well, this is what I don't know if this is the same process, but like I said, this is something you can crawl into a shell like a turtle and hide. And no one. We're gonna see a lot of this with transgenderism too. By the way, it's already happening. Like young women are transitioning at a much higher rate than young men. Well, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm talking about young, like kids. I know what you're thinking.
I'm thinking they're stupid. Sorry, I don't mean the transgender thing. I'm thinking if I was a woman and I was transgendering, I would do that non-binary thing.
Well,
why would you want to be a man?
Well, okay, that's true. They might get lumped in with that. I'm not saying that there are a lot of girls who like taking T for sure and becoming a man, but they're experiencing gender dysphoria at a higher rate than boys. They're getting treatment and they're getting diagnosed with it at a higher rate than boys are. Mm-hmm. And you can suss out pretty easily why that would be, right? Young women, I think, experience issues with their bodies, body image, and sexuality in a more intense way than boys do.
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree? And so here's a solution to that problem. It's a very confusing time to be a young person. Way more confusing than when we were growing up in the 80s and 90s. Here's a way out. Oh, I'm non-binary. I'm whatever. I'm asexual. I'm, demi-gorgon sexual. It's an easy way to just say, hey, this is my bunker. I'm stepping out. You guys enjoy yourself. And where I was going with this was, this is a way you can opt out of the scarier parts of life. And that's a bad thing to offer anybody, but especially to offer young people, because they'll follow the path of least resistance if you let them.
Right. And sexuality, interpersonal relationships is, of course, it's the most difficult thing.
It's fucking 38 years old and it's still fucking hard. Still fucking horrible, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it never changes.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So, yeah. I mean, of course, I mean, if Freud or anyone's taught us anything, it's that we are terrified to be intimate with other people, show them our inner side. You're going to think I'm this or that. I'm ugly in the inside.
Yeah.
And I can see a couple moves there. First off, when you're doing the transition thing, it gives you it gives you a thing to where, well, life sucks now, but I have a locus of my energy to where 6 months from now I'm going to get that surgery, and then I'm going to do this. And I have my next meeting here, and this is all building towards a path of being okay with myself.
Yeah, once you get the right dosage and you get the right, you change your appearance to look a certain way, then you'll be happy finally.
Sure. This is where I get squirrely on this. Because to be honest, and any of our, I mean, my take, I think it's piss off every human being alive, but I have a weird take on this, and basically I think that we can solve a great deal of our current problems with this concept of transgender.
Yeah. Okay. Before we get into that, just let me kind of.
This is a monster take.
Let me crimp off what I was trying to get at, which is that this is just one of the many ways you can pronounce things about yourself that say, "Hey, you wouldn't hit a guy with glasses, would you?" It's a moral crime for you to criticize me, to be against me because I am, and insert whatever you want to hear.
Oh, I mean, it's real. I mean,
that's the DSA Otherkin caucus, whatever. That's why that happens, because it's a very powerful move. And we've talked about this many times before, and you have kind of a little catchphrase, which was that in our system, and like in the way we run things, you can do anything if it's in self-defense.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's too intense, too over the top if you're defending yourself. So you're just strategically positioning yourself to where anybody doing something you don't like is a direct attack on your person. It's violence. Yes, you're violent. Your life is in danger. So unperson them, fire them from the job, beat them with a bike chain, whatever. It's all on the table.
Yeah, one of the critiques of liberalism, one of the foundational things in Western liberal societies is that self-defense. Any European country, Western country, if your government was set up by the CIA, you can get away with it. We were talking about this with the gun laws. If you have an illegal gun, you shoot somebody that comes in your house, you're in Norway or something, you're probably going to get off, because self-defense sort of trumps everything. That trumps anything is going to become is going to be exploited. This is there's a little small example. So nuclear bombs would destroy all life on Earth, right?
No, but I that's not true actually. But yeah, go.
Basically,
no. They heavily exaggerated the effects of it.
So a big nuclear catastrophe would cause mass havoc in
right. It would be bad. I'm sorry, I'm being contrarian right now. Go ahead, continue.
Okay, yeah. But so if I'm having any debate about anything and I can smuggle nuclear holocaust into my argument, then I can win against anything. You can't come up with some argument that's like, well, yeah, but maybe it's not. I win every argument. So this is yeah. So
Wait,
agreed.
you see this a lot, but there are babies in cages right now.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
very
There's
second,
the Holocaust right now.
babies in cages. But the biggest one is obviously, you can say whatever you want, but the world's melting.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be uninhabitable in 50 years. So you need to give me complete control over everything right now. It's the only way. I used to call it radical empathy, but you had a problem with that because it's not really empathy. But radical empathy probably works well enough.
Sympathy.
Yeah, okay. All right. Radical sympathy. What I've been thinking about a lot lately, when you see any of these stories and you watch this, people behave in this, engage in this behavior, I imagine to myself, let's say you constructed an ideology, for lack of a better word, an ethos, and the only guiding principle of this, everything you do, is just deconstructing and unraveling everything that's stable and everything that's necessary in life. So it's explicitly self-destructive, like death drive animated way to act. How would that be different than whatever crazy thing that they're talking about at the DSA Disability Caucus? Like, how would their actions be different if they had a way of viewing the world that was designed to destroy everything? Now, people will call them wreckers, but that's like a very narrow. You're in here to wreck the movement. Your behavior is detrimental, and whether you realize it or not, you're intentionally fucking up our party, right?
Yeah,
That's something. But let's say it's way beyond that. It's not just about wrecking the movement. You're a wrecker, but for civilization. Civilization level suicidal ideation.
Yeah, well, it's a lot easier than responsibility.
Yeah, and more and more when I do this test, like when I say, how would this be different if this person was had that view? A lot of times,
there's a force of nature just eating.
Yeah, it's entropy. A lot of times it's like it's the same thing. It's like they would be acting just this way.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? How do you reason with someone like that?
The only thing I can think of is containment.
Yeah. Once that idea has spread far and wide enough, that you're not going to contain it anymore.
No. Well, you might
like a
contain
pandemic.
yourself and be the green shoots that come after.
Yep. Get in the bunker.
Yeah.
But anyway, so tell us your strategy of using transgenderism to fix our problems with gender relations.
Okay. So, a couple things. First off, transgenderism is it's not new.
No.
It's been around. There was a Bond girl in the 70s that was transgender.
Yeah.
You got all these historical examples, Roman emperors, so it's not going to go away. And if you take a look at the really big problems in society, I think the really, really biggest problems are related to gender.
Mm-hmm. Who's mad?
I think the biggest there's no metric you can show me that's sort of like a bigger impact than the collapse of marriage over the past 30 years.
Yeah, I
that's
agree
just
with you.
that's just too huge. There's nothing really on that scale, and that just changes everything. Because when a man and woman are married, now that sort of ties their interests together. Now you have kids, and now their interests are tied together through this kid as well. Now you got a future thing. Now you're wondering about what you're going to leave for them.
People's politics change when they get married.
Mm-hmm.
If you can look this up yourselves. Compare how it's more pronounced for women than it is for men, but compare like how single women vote and how they view issues compared to married women, and same demographics, they'll be you get 10, 15 points swing in different directions based on being single or married.
Okay. So there's that. So I'm keeping that in mind. I'm thinking that's the biggest issue of all. Biggest issue of all. People showed me the photos from the junior high track meet where there's a male to female transgender person. They're kicking ass, and I'm just thinking, this doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. This doesn't matter at all compared to the big things going on in society. I'm sorry your daughter lost. I don't want to get into the ethics of whether that's good or bad, because this is a drop in the bucket. You're talking. I mean.
Right. It's not important compared to the other things.
There's not any. Here's the thing. There's not anyone that doesn't think society is in serious peril. So you may or may not agree that the gender stuff is the biggest. I think it is, but let's say it is. Now, what are we gonna do with all these fucking people when they get really old? What system is gonna give a shit about them?
Well, if I was playing devil's advocate, I'd say old people vote, so they'll be the last people to get cut off from the dole.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, that doesn't tell the whole story. Like when you're even if you have money to not have to eat cat food when you're old and by yourself, it's not good times.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the big problem. And so, all right, so you got all these people that are not married. Why are these males not being married?
Is that rhetorical?
Let's just throw out maybe a couple reasons.
Reasons for the marriage rate.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
what's the big one?
There's no reason to get married. There's no objective scientific reason to get married anymore. Traditionally, you would get married in your early 20s at a time that it was a sacrifice kind of for both of you, but it was more of a sacrifice for women.
Right.
Kind of giving up your salad years to one man, and in exchange for
you don't know if he's really going to be able to take care of you and your kids.
That and there's no guarantee for either party anymore because you can get divorced, and it's not only legal, but there's no stigma. Honestly, if anything, people will encourage you to get divorced if things are going poorly in a way they probably wouldn't have 30 years ago. So you have that. Also, men, especially young men, not really making money. Don't have as good.
They're not a good bet.
Right.
And okay, yeah. So these young guys, they're not a sure thing. If you right now, if I got your driver's license to say you were a female, you think you could line up a job at the fire department or Google?
I mean, I see what you're saying, and the answer.
Well, do you?
Okay, yes, but there's a caveat there. This is a thing that only works. It's like a prisoner's dilemma thing. It only works when there are a few people defecting. Once it becomes a strategy that everybody uses, it's not going to work anymore.
I think the opposite. I think a small amount of people using the strategy in the really high profile positions. This is sort of the theory. That if you use this at the Google job, at the Manhattan Fire Department, if a very tiny amount of people do this, it sort of cracks the system, and we could get out of the current situation.
We've talked about this before. I disagree. Right now, the sports. Can't everybody agree that at least some of these athletes who are male to female, they're doing it so they can win at the sports, right? So, any reasonable person would admit that like at least some of them are like that.
Good. That's what I want. I want for things that are actually important.
Right. But I don't think that's happening a lot for things that are important. I think that probably most of the people who are going male to female, they're not doing it as a conscious strategy. It's not. They're not faking it. They're. What's going to happen if you try the strategy that you're outlining, which is that you cynically say, hey, I'm female. You got to.
Lots of people have done it before, just not in America.
Okay. I think what'll happen if people start doing that is this is another way to employ more people into the bureaucracy, which is you have social workers who
give you an official status.
Well, and that just suss out people who are trying to commit fraud because
this is part of the this is already baked into the ideology. If I can come into the meeting room there with my Judith Butler book, I can say no, this is all socially constructed. You don't know what you're talking about.
Right, but they could look into how if you live
gender.
So, how many people do you think would change the way they live their life to do that?
Nobody. No one would have to.
I think they would have to. I think that they would. What have you got? Like I say, let's say that you're a beautiful Czechoslovakian, and you want to get married. You want to get married to me for a green card. They'll send somebody to make sure that we're actually cohabitating and all that stuff. They check that shit out. They don't just take your word for it.
Okay, well, this is irrelevant to the gender thing.
No, it's not. You could have a social worker that goes to visit the person, to make sure they're actually living their life identifying as female rather than just saying it.
Okay, so how does that jive with the 37 genders?
Well, actually, this is kind of an important thing about how we perceive gender. If you're woke, if it's something where this is just I believe I am, therefore I am that thing. They have to just prove you don't really believe that you're that you don't live your life like you believe it, that you don't introduce yourself that way.
Okay, let me sweeten the deal a little bit. Okay, so a couple things. First off, this is not a great idea. Second off, where does this come from? Okay, so we're into the anti-IDPOL stuff, yeah?
Right.
And so I think that if you flatten these categories out that they use to divide people, that's when the real good stuff happens. Right?
I will say one thing, that the quote unquote Terfs, they're not doing so well in the war.
Good. I don't support them.
Yeah. And you don't support them because
they're doing what I'm saying here in a great deal of a great. So if you're a TERF and your daughter is getting beat at the track meet or something like this, and you don't have you weren't involved in any of this stuff, then yeah, my heart goes out to you. If you are defending your position at a university job or something like that, and you're afraid a trans person to take your job, fuck you. Fuck you. Someone shows up, they said I took the pills, in my case, I don't even want them to have to take the pills. Someone says I show up, I have the wig on, I went to this or that, I want that job, and you say no, well fuck you.
Well, okay.
If you let's say you own a business, okay? Mm-hmm. Someone applies for a job there. Do you give a fuck what's in their pants?
Well, no, unless there's unless a quote is involved.
Then even better.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's a point in your favor.
Yeah. You don't. There is a massive level of hypocrisy with the TERF position. I'm sorry if you listen to this episode, you might get pissed off at that. But okay, now if you're an Amish person or something, you're saying, look, we don't want any part of this. We have a man and a woman, and in our little community, that's how we roll. And then look, this is how I believe as well. Sorry. But
I got two critiques of this. The first one is the one I kind of outlined before, which is that they can thought patrol you and make sure that you said before wearing a wig. Well, if you had to actually demonstrate,
then I'd be screwed.
Well, maybe not, but I don't think most men will be willing to do that.
No, I bet you some still would, but
right, some would. There always will be.
But that's not the plan. The plan is you say, hey, this is what it says in my driver's license, but I'm going to use the men's restroom. I'm gonna wear slacks, and but you can report to the state agency that I'm a female. That's
already basically happening at Google, right?
I don't know. Not that I know. Well, I haven't heard that. If that's true, that's awesome.
No. Let me walk that back. So they're already Google already jukes their numbers by employing people who are male to female transgender and saying, "Hey, we're hiring women in engineering jobs." So like that already kind of happens.
Yeah, but it doesn't work if you have to actually do this stuff.
It's not cynical. I get that. So
now,
if okay,
let me put up another thing here. Okay, so where did you get this crazy ass idea? Here's the reason. So, like I said, the really big important stuff I think is the boys and girls, the mainstream stuff, right? And so if I can tweak that by doing a little transgender stuff, I'm cool with that. Second off, these women are the majority. Yes?
Yes.
Majority voters and stuff. And they have this protected status thing. I can't take that back. You're not going to get rid of that. It's never going to go away.
Right, and that's
this is a problem for the anti-IDPOL people. All these protected status stuff means there's always going to be a cash reason to keep people divided. And we can go past this, by the way. I want you to be able to identify as black. I want you to be able to identify as Muslim. I want you to be able to identify as bisexual. Because we could finally crack this thing and build a mass movement to change this country if we did this. And you might say, well, this is dumb. I would say, what do you got that's better?
Well, in this example, brings me my second critique of your idea, which is that women are the majority of voters. They are ever increasingly important group with protected status, which is interesting how that'll work when, women, like 80% of people in college are women, and et cetera, when they're making more money than men are. How are you going to do that? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We could always just go back to gender essentialist versions of feminism that existed in the past.
That's what they want to do, and that's what I want to stop them from doing.
I know, I'm just saying, like, that's much more likely than your thing where say I identify as whatever, and, well, I guess we just have to get rid of the whole thing. They'll just.
Okay, well, that's all I got. If anyone's got a better idea, hit me with it.
Yeah, I get that, but I'm just saying, they can always just move the goalpost to, well, it's gender essentialist. Like, actually, you're endangering us by going into the bathroom.
Okay, let me tweak it even further. What if there's a little bit of incentive for like individual corporations to do this?
To do what? To have guys pretend to be women?
To sign the paper.
Sign the paper says that we've hired.
To walk in, they say, hey, I identify as a black transgender lesbian,
right,
Muslim, and you can report that to the state. If you own a tech firm, that might be appealing.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That can sort of juice things up in my favor.
Yes, but on the other hand, they're already they're not really having a problem at the moment with their hiring practices. They'll get somebody, Ocasio-Cortez will yell at Zuckerberg in Congress or whatever.
Go to the fire department, ask for a job.
Okay, right, but we're talking about the tech companies. They're still having a bunch of white and Asian men doing those jobs. They're not. Mm-hmm. They're not having a problem where. The fire department.
So you don't see a lot of push for women in STEM, a lot of money going into this, a lot of waved around your face. How many women are mechanical engineers?
No.
And how this requires action and cash from you.
Okay, yeah, but that's just like a standard grift.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't.
I want to end it.
Oh, okay. Well, we're talking about different things there.
Anyways. So it's a loony idea. Don't take it too seriously. I don't know if this is gonna happen or not. But this is good, old boys. You hear some weird shit on here.